What is going on, internet? My name is JB and welcome to what is the first of hopefully many build videos here on Baldur's Gate 3. Today we're starting things off pretty simple with the Hand of Death. I'm not really sure. I'm not really good at these super thematic names, so if you guys have any suggestions for names or how to come up with better names for builds, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. But we're building something that you guys have maybe seen some versions of floating around, but we are building a necrotic damage focused monk cleric, death cleric multi-class that just does a lot of damage and is very, very thematic and very fitting. You can see from the combat footage, you just do a ridiculous amount of damage and it's just a ton of fun to play and feels very on brand for, as you guys will see, a follower of Vlaakith. So hopefully you guys stick around, drop a like, and enjoy this sort of video. I would very much like to keep making build videos for this game and just make Baldur's Gate 3 content in general. I really love this game and really enjoy making content centered around it. So if you guys enjoy it as well, please be sure to drop a like. It would really help me out, and subscribe if you are new here. That being said, let's go ahead and get on into the build. Okay, as we hop into the build, there are multiple ways of building this character, and for the simplicity of this video, I'm just going to go straight through all the levels in one class, but we'll get to that here in a moment. For the race, this is a single player game. Play whichever one you feel like playing, whichever one stands out the most to you, but there are, of course, ways to have a little bit of power building built into it if you want. If you choose to play an elf, you can go high elf and get an extra cantrip, which can always be nice. It is based on your intelligence, and we won't have any of that on this build, so probably not the best. You can go a wood elf and get even more movement speed. This character is already going to have a ton of that built in, just being a monk. So you can do that if you want. If you want to be a drow, you can get free cast of fairy fire and darkness, which can always just be helpful for advantage or, you know, getting out of a sticky situation, or if you have other characters in your party that do darkness shenanigans, that's entirely up to you. Same thing with high elf or half elf. If you want to do half drow or half high elf, you can do the same sort of thing, or even wood elf for the movement speed. Entirely your choice. Dragonborn could be pretty fitting as a black dragonborn or even a green dragonborn. Obviously poison and acid, not exactly the same as necrotic, but somewhat similar. Copper as well, so you can be a dragonborn, but I think the best choice for this is going to be Gith, because, well, Gith, I don't know, it just feels very fitting, especially for someone who would be following Vlaakith. Now I have the mod that allows any character to have a deity because I just wanted to play through the game with like the Selene dialogue, just because I was curious. I'd never done that for this particular save file, and I didn't want to play a cleric, but that's beside the point. We would get this from our cleric levels anyway. And what is Vlaakith if not, you know, someone who would probably be a big fan of the necrotic? I mean, for fuck's sake, excuse me, whatever, I'm not monetized on the channel, doesn't matter. She is an undead lich queen god. Yeah, she is necromancy itself. I'm not really sure death is one of her actual cleric domains in like tabletop, but regardless, feels very fitting for a follower of Vlaakith to be big into necrotic damage. So we are, of course, going to be starting out as a monk, which is mostly what this build is going to be, a monk build. And yeah, we're here to punch things. I like monk quite a bit. It is one of the stronger early game classes. There's also going to be some cleric levels in this, and a build option where you can take druid. I really wouldn't recommend starting off with your druid levels. It's going to be just a 2-level dip at the end of the build if you want to go that route. Regardless, cleric is very strong all throughout the game, but I think monks particularly shine very early on, and monks are just fun. So we're going to go with monk. In terms of background, you could just pick your favorite here. There are, of course, some min-maxy options as well. Guild Artisan's quite good. Insight and Persuasion are 2 skills that come up quite often. But I also quite like Charlatan because this character could be your lockpicking character with sleight of hand proficiency, and then also you get Deception proficiency, excuse me, which is always good to have as well. As for your ability scores, also from monk you get, or from being a Githyanki, you get access to proficiency with light and medium armor, as well as blades, which can count as monk weapons, which will always be a nice thing to have access to. But we won't be wearing armor with us. But in terms of our skill proficiencies, I know not everyone loves the idea of having to use strength elixirs, but it does really help out this build. If you just don't want to do that for whatever reason, it's not something you enjoy doing in your game, the highest I would recommend going on this is 14 strength. This is also going to be a tavern brawler build. If you don't want to, you know, deal with that as well, you know, do you pick your own sort of stuff for your own sort of theming. But for this video, I would highly recommend just dumping strength. It allows you to have higher charisma so you can be useful in conversations. The character can act as a party face. So for that reason, I would say probably just dump strength. This is also an excellent character for Ethel's hair. So you can get up to 20 dexterity with only 1 ability improvement. I don't have Ethel's hair on the save file, and this isn't my main character anyway. So yeah, just have a mod that allows me to customize hirelings, which is very, very nice. So yeah, I would probably just give 16 dexterity if this is one of your party mates, or if you want to give this character Ethel's hair, obviously just 17 there. Won't change too much. For your constitution, you want to go up to 15. Again, Tavern Brawler build, gonna want to have the odd number here in constitution. If you want to go 13 and don't really care about your HP or your AC, which now that I think about it, doesn't really matter for your AC because this isn't a barbarian. So if you want to go 13 and just bump it up to 14, that's an option as well. You get higher wisdom that way, but I don't know, I like having HP. And then for your wisdom, you can bump that up to 14, and then you still have just 6 ability points left over. I would probably recommend going up to 12 charisma, just so you can have, like I said, a little bit of conversation skills. You can be a little bit of a party face. And then for your other 2, you can go up to 10 intelligence if you want. You can go up to 10 strength if you want, just to have that little bit of extra carry capacity. You don't have an elixir up, could be nice. So yeah, whatever you want to do with those last 2 points, pick your favorite. You can't get 14 charisma, unfortunately, because you need an extra 2 points. So you want to like drop this to 13, and you can get 14 there and 10 there if you want. That's up to you, but yeah, I would just do that. So that's how we're gonna build it. Let's go ahead and get into the rest of the leveling. Now, I did mention there are multiple ways of leveling this character up. Go with what feels right to you, but for the purposes of this video, I am just gonna go straight with our levels in a monk. But if you want to get cleric levels online sooner, I would probably say you might want to start off as a cleric, just so you can get straight to cleric 6, which is as high as we're going to be taking this build. Specifically for Act 2, I think cleric is a little bit better then. So if you just want to get to Act 2 once you hit level 6, you want to respec in a cleric up to level 6, you could do that and just play through that portion of the game, because there are so many enemies with necrotic resistance at cleric level 6. You get an ability to let your spells ignore that. It doesn't work for your unarmed attacks, but that doesn't really matter. Like I said, if you want to just respec once you hit cleric 6 to get through Act 2 easier, you can play it that way. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to go straight through our levels in monk. And as a monk at level 2, we get unarmored movement, which increases your movement speed by 10 feet while you are not wearing armor or using a shield, which we will not be doing either of those with this build. As for our actions, we get patient defense. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and you have advantage on dexterity saving throws that cost a bonus action and a key point, which key points are basically your resource. They're like your spell slots or your sorcery points for this character. And then you also get step of the wind dash. It's, is what it says. You can dash as a bonus action, and then you also get disengage, and you can disengage as a bonus action. All very useful in their own scenarios. At monk level 3, you can choose your subclass. There really is only one option for what we're doing in this build, and that is of course going to be the Way of the Open Hand. Way of the Shadow has some merit to it, but it doesn't really get the necrotic theming that we're going for with this build. But Way of the Shadow is also just pretty good, but Way of the Open Hand is by far the strongest monk option in the game, in my opinion. You also, as the Githyanki at level 3, get access to Githyanki Psionics Jump, which is just nice. You can cast a jump spell, jump pretty far, and with your strength elixirs, you'll be really just zooming across the battlefield. As the Way of the Open Hand monk, though, you get access to Flurry of Blows, which is one of the strongest just damaging things in the game. And you have 3 different uses for this. You have Topple, which can knock people prone. You have Stagger, which can make them unable to take reactions. And then you have Push, which pushes them back and potentially off cliffs if you want to go that route. Yeah, you're going to get a ton of use out of this. Basically, you make an unarmed or weapon attack with your main action, and then you can do a Flurry of Blows, which just does astronomical damage. This is where a majority of your damage from this build is going to come. And if you do want to just completely ignore all of this, there are many a build out there with Monk, Thief, Rogue, multi-classes, so you can get multiple Flurry of Blows in a turn. That's not what we're doing here today, but it is always an option if you're playing a Monk. At Monk level 4, we get access to an additional key point as well as slow fall. When you fall, you can use your reaction to gain resistance to falling damage. Won't come up too often, but is useful to have when it would. So there you go. As for your feat, your first one of build, you're only going to get access to 2 feats on this build, which can be annoying. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and just grab Tavern Brawler because, well, it's Tavern Brawler. When you make an unarmed attack, use an improvised weapon or throw something, your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. So it's an extra 5 damage on every single attack if you're using strength elixirs to get your strength score up to 21. And is it 7 or 8 damage if you're using Cloud Giant in the Act 2, the one that sets it to 27. See, 20 is plus 5, so 22 would be plus 6, 24 plus 7, 26, which is the same thing as 27 is plus 8. So yeah, just unbelievable damage. Tavern Brawler is broken in this game, so yeah, abuse it, especially if you're playing underneath honor mode where it's added, like I said, pretty sure twice. I'm pretty sure it's only added once in honor mode. I don't know exactly how it works, but regardless, it's stupid amounts of damage. Tavern Brawler is the most overpowered feat in the game. That said, at monk level 5, we get access to extra attack, meaning every time we take an action, we can hit something twice. And we also get Stunning Strike melee and Stunning Strike unarmed, which, yeah, you can hit something and possibly stun them, which makes them basically just skip their turn. Can't take actions, bonus actions, or reactions, or move. So yeah, basically just waste the turn. It is based on a constitution save, so unless you have a way of lowering that with one of your other party members, or a way of like ensuring that succeeds, probably won't come up all too often, but it's pretty nice when it does. Also, if you just need a Hail Mary to potentially stun something, nice to have. So yeah, and then also at Get the Yankee level 5, you get Misty Step once per day. Pretty good. Always nice to have Misty Step on a character, and you get it for free as a gift. And then finally, for our monk levels, at monk level 6, we get improved unarmored movement. Your movement speed increases by 15 feet while you're not wearing armor or using a shield. You also get key empowered to strikes. Your unarmed attacks count as magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical damage. You also get the class action wholeness of body. You regain half your key points and enter a temporary state of wholeness where you regain key points and have an extra bonus action. So more flurry of blows. Pretty nice to have. You do have to make an unarmed or make a main action attack though to get use of this. So you're only going to have it for like one, I guess I have it for 2 turns because it lasts for 3 turns. So you have to use this. You don't get access to your extra bonus action to hit anything. You can't flurry of blows this turn unless you're hasted, I guess, but that's a different discussion. But yeah, it's pretty nice to have. And then the main thing we went to monk 6-4 is going to be manifestation of body. Your hands sap the key from your enemy's bodies. Your unarmed attacks an additional 3 to 6 necrotic damage. You can also do it for psychic or radiant damage, depending on the situation. But again, we're necrotic servants of a lich god, so yeah, necrotic damage, very fitting for this. All right, now at level 7, this is where we hit a fork in the road. There are multiple ways to build this character. I'm going to show off my preferred way, which is really just an Act 3 build. So if you're already through Act 2, or if this isn't your main cleric in your party, I would go ahead and only take 4 levels of cleric and then 2 levels of Spores Druid. Or if this is like more of a main cleric, or you just really want level 3 cleric spells, which are obviously some of the best spells in the game, and you want to have 2 clerics in your party, or you don't have 2 clerics in your party, then you can go with a 6-6 split. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you guys are just taking this into Act 3 and isn't your main cleric. So we're going to go with a 6-4-2 split. You still get the extra feat, and you get some fun stuff from Druid as well. So that being said, we're going to hop now into our cleric level. All right, so at cleric 1, we're of course going to be going with the death domain. You nourish your faith on the forces that create the dead and give rise to the undead. You gain a cantrip just for being a death domain cleric, which we'll talk about here in a moment. You also get spells False Life, which can be useful in Ray of Sickness, which is some decent damage, possibly poisoning a target. Could be good. But the main thing you're here for is Reaper. Your necromancy cantrips that only target one creature can target an additional creature instead. So that's pretty good. So you're gonna want to go ahead and go to your death domain cantrip. Specifically, you get your 3 just from being a cleric, and then you get your 1 for death domain. You're gonna want to take Bone Chill from your domain cleric slot, because once we head back over to your cleric cantrips, you can then take Toll the Dead there. But going back to Bone Chill for a moment, prevent the target from healing until your next turn, and an undead creature receives disadvantage on attack rolls if you hit them with it. Very good ability, especially in Acts 2 against a certain undead god. Yeah, one of the dead 3. It's a very, very useful ability to have, and it's just good in general. Preventing healing is always nice, but it does completely win some encounters, like I said. And then, like I also said, you can get Toll the Dead from your cleric cantrips. So Toll the Dead is very cool. Ring the Bell of Impending Doom. If the target is at full health, you deal 2 to 16 necrotic damage instead. It's kind of messed up because we're, of course, above the level where cantrips get upgraded. So if the target is at full health, you deal 1d8 damage. If the target has taken damage, you deal 1d12 or 2d12 if you're, of course, past level 5. And then once you hit level 10, it increases to 3d12 or 3d8. So pretty damn good cantrip. As for your other ones, guidance is always great to have. If you already have someone in your party who has guidance, you don't need to take it, but still one of the best spells in the game. And then for your other one, you can grab Bursting Sinew because it's also a necromancy cantrip, or you can grab Blade Ward. This character doesn't really have a whole lot of going for it in terms of resistances, so might as well grab Blade Ward there. As for your prepared spells at this level, pick your favorites, but I feel like it'd be wrong to not have Inflict Wounds, just another necromancy spell. Great damage, really, really good damage, and even more if you upcast it. I'm a huge fan of Inflict Wounds. Sanctuary is always really good to have, and then Command just feels very fitting for a gift, but of course, these are cleric. It's cleric level, so you can switch these out as needed. For your proficiencies, just again, pick your favorite. I would probably go ahead, keep Insight. Religion doesn't really come up a whole lot in the game, and you can get proficiency in Persuasion, so might as well do that. At Cleric level 2, we get another very nice subclass feature, your Channel Divinity Touch of Death. When you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal additional necrotic damage. Very strong. You also get access to Turn Undead, which make undead run away from you, which you probably don't really want to be doing too often because you want to punch things. You don't really want things to run away from you as a monk unless you just really need them to run away from you. You're like super surrounded, you're in alone, something like that maybe. But yeah, you don't really probably want to be casting that too much. And then again, just pick your favorite here. We'll go with Healing Word because might as well. Doesn't really feel like a character that'll be healing a whole lot, but it is what it is. At Cleric level 3, I should also say, if you want to take 4 levels in Druid and 2 levels in Cleric, we only really need that other, that last ability, the Touch of Death. You only really need your Channel Divinity from your Cleric level. So if you want to go 4 levels into Druid, you can. I'm just going 4 levels into Cleric because it's, I don't know, that's what I did. We're just here going to level 4 for the feat. So yeah, if you want to go 4 into Druid, you can. Totally up to you. But you get Ray of Enfeeblement and Blindness as Death Domain spells, which are pretty useless, but you also get, of course, access to many a level 2 Cleric spell. You could probably get rid of Cure Wounds and Healing Word. Again, probably not a character who's going to be healing a lot. Hold Person feels very fitting. And then why not get yourself a spiritual weapon as well. And then at Cleric level 4, you get an additional cantrip as well as more level 2 spells and the feat that we went to this level 4. Pick your favorite here. Might as well grab Bursting Sinew. It's a necromancy cantrip, so you can target 2 people with it if you want. It'd be useful. And then for your feats, Alert is never a bad option in honor mode, just so you get more initiative, but your dexterity is pretty low and you're getting into the late game, so you might want to go ahead and just bump that up to 18, which will also help with your initiative. You can give this character initiative gear as well and would very much appreciate that. So yeah, again, if you're taking Ethel's Hair with this character, this will of course be getting you up to 20 dexterity, which would be even better. But again, well, I don't have Ethel's Hair on this character because I use it on my main character. But yeah, it is what it is. If you want to get this character up to level 20 dexterity at this level, you can. I will say, level 5 Cleric is pretty damn nice because of course you get the level 3 Cleric spells, which are some of the best in the game, including the necrotic version of Spirit Guardians, which is great. Mastering Word is also nice to have. You get a lot out of this level of Cleric. You get Create Undead and Vampiric Touch as domain spells. If you want to lean more into the Cleric stuff, you can. I'm assuming you probably have another Cleric in your party and you don't really need to, so we're going to be going with our last 2 levels into Druid, which is always fun. For your cantrips, you don't really need Shillelagh because your dexterity and your strength is going to be higher than your wisdom, but it's nice to have. Thorn Whip is a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of Thorn Whip, so we'll be taking that. And then for your other one, pick your favorite. Resistance, getting it here could be good. Produce Flame is fun. Poison Spray is fun. We'll probably just grab Resistance. And then for your Cleric spells, you can get some utility out of like Long Strider. Again, you can switch these out at will as well. Fog Cloud feels pretty on theme, and Tangle feels pretty on theme, and then Ice Knife for a ranged option, just should you need it, makes a lot of sense. And then at Cleric level, at Druid level 2, you get your subclass, and we'll be going with Circle of the Spores. You can, of course, Wild Shape if you really want to. You get a Bone Chill as a cantrip again, so you get it twice, but unnecessary. And then you get Halo of Spores, which unleash a cloud of necrotic spores on a target uses a reaction. So other reactions won't trigger this turn, so Halo Spores is whatever. But the main thing we're here for is Symbiotic Entity. Gain 4 temporary hit points. I believe that is actually tied to your Druid level. But you deal an additional 1 to 6 necrotic damage while you have them. And can cast Halo of Spores with double damage. It's not going to come up super often, but it's extra necrotic damage. Maybe you want to take these earlier. Maybe you want to go 6 Monk, 2 Cleric. So you can have that up a little bit more often. And maybe you want to go into level 4 Cleric, so you get, I believe, more HP from that. I forget how it works. I thought it was... Is it your Wisdom modifier? It might be your Wisdom modifier. Or is it your Wisdom modifier plus your Druid level? It might be that. So you get more temporary hit points going for Cleric, or for Druid, which is probably better. Regardless, we were only with the level 4 in the other class for the feat. So yeah, you should probably do it that way. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this. We're just showing off the theming. And then for this other spell, take your favorite. Let's talk to Scratch, I guess. So there you have it. There's your leveling. What you're getting out of it is a monk that can cast a lot of necromancy spells, which is pretty darn cool. But we can make this build a lot more viable with items. So let's go over those next. All right, for items, monks have some of the best items in the game for their playstyle. What I have right now on the character is kind of your in-game set. Starting off with the Mask of Soul Perception. You gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls, initiative rolls, and perception checks. Just all very useful skills to have, particularly the +2 to attack rolls and initiative. Like I said, this character is not going to have the best initiative if you don't have alert, but giving it a lot of gear to help out with that can be nice. For your cloak, it's pretty much pick your favorite. I just wanted the Cloak of Protection for the extra point of AC to get us up to 20, but I also quite like the Flesh Melter Cloak. Whenever a creature deals melee damage to the wearer, that creature takes 1d4 acid damage. Just pretty nice. You're going to be in melee combat pretty much the entire game playing with this character, so not a bad option there for just a little bit of extra damage. Your late game vest is going to be the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation. When the wearer succeeds on a saving throw against a spell, they regain 1 to 4 hit points. The wearer can use a reaction to make an unarmed strike against any attacker that misses, and you also get an extra +2 to your armor class. And then for your gauntlets, there are many good gauntlets, but if you're in the very end game, you can go with the Gloves of Soul Catching. Your unarmed attacks deal an additional 1 to 10 force damage. And then additionally, once per turn on an unarmed hit, you regain 10 hit points. Alternatively, you may forego healing to gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the end of your next turn. You also get +2 to your constitution. Now, you get these at the very end of the House of Hope quest, so you're probably not going to get to use them for too much of the game, but there are so many good options for gauntlets for monks here. Since you're not wearing armor, you can rock the Braces of Defense even in the late game and have 22 AC, which is nuts. You also have the Gloves of Cinder and Sizzle, and pretty much all of these other gloves. You have the Snow-Dusted Monastery gloves, the Servitor Blackhand gloves, the Pugilist gloves, and the Thunderpalm Strikers. All of these just give you an extra 1d4 of elemental damage, and you can get them pretty much all throughout the game. Like, I know the Thunderpalm Strikers and the Gloves of Cinder and Sizzle are like very early on. I believe you get these in early Acts 2. These are late game. These are also... these are in Rivington, so these are pretty late game as well, but you'll have your fair share of options throughout the game for that. You get the Gloves of Uninhibited Kushigo from Dareth Bonecloak in the Underdark. Those are pretty nice. You can also get the Sparkle Hands quite early on, which can be good. One thing I will say is you don't have actually great access to clothing, so I would say the Gloves of the Sparkle Hands are actually quite good, because there aren't a ton of great... Look how fucking organized this is, by the way. There aren't a ton of great robes in Act 1. So if you want to get these Sparkle Hands and rock the Protect These Sparks Wall, you can get an extra bonus to your armor class when you have lightning charges. So basically, whenever you're unarmed attacking someone with the Sparkle Hands, you gain lightning charges, and you get a little bit of extra AC that way if you want to. But I prefer just going with the Braces of Defense and just using whatever for your clothing early on. Oh, I forgot to talk about some of the early game options for helmet and clothes, so I'm hopefully going to edit this in where it makes sense. But very early on in the game, you get access to the haste helm. This is going to be your best helmet for most of Act 1. You at the start of combat, the wearer gains momentum for 3 turns. You just get extra movement speed at the start of combat. Pretty nice. You also get the hat of uninhibited Kushigo from the quartermaster at last slide in. After dealing damage with an unarmed attack, the wearer gains a +1 bonus to their spell save DC until the end of the next turn. You can probably use this for a large majority of Act 2 until you get the Mask of Soul Perception, which I guess you can get as soon as you get to Baldur's Gate, but still. Pretty nice to have because it helps out with your cleric abilities, so helps you hit some of those a little bit easier. Could be quite nice. And then for the clothes, there aren't a lot of good early game clothes. Like we already talked about the Jolty Vest a little bit earlier, but you do get access to the Graceful Cloth quite early on, get a little bit extra added on to your dexterity. Could even be good in the late game, just getting you up to 20 dex, which I believe will also get us an extra point of... Actually, no, we're going to lose 1 AC because of this giving you +2 to AC, but, you know, obviously the Graceful Cloth is very good. You also get the Armor of Uninhibited Kushigo. You can get this from the Nir's Sergeant if you return the Boots of Speed, and then, you know, finish that fight, and you get this as a reward. You can choose between this and a ring that's kind of mid, and then you could also just get the boots back after you end the fight. But while patient defense is active, the wearer can use the reaction to make an unarmed strike against an attacker that misses. That's pretty good. So would it really be a bad idea? You can get the Ice Bite robe in the cemetery in Act 2. Easy level 3. Cast of Armor Vlaakith is probably not better than either of these two, but just wanted to point out. And then the Enraging Heart Garb is also nice. It doesn't really benefit you too much because you're not a barbarian, but the +2 to Constitution is still pretty good passive benefit to have. Gives you a little bit more HP, so there are options for clothing, just a lot of them come in Act 2 and Act 3, so there is all of that. Now, back to whatever the hell I was talking about, wherever I decided to put the sun on, and then you're, like I said, there's plenty of options for your gloves in this game. You also have the Gloves of Crushing in Act 2, and the Dark Justiciar Gauntlets, which give you extra necrotic damage, which could also be pretty good. You're probably going to want to use these just for theming. You also get the Flawed Helldust Gloves, as well as the regular Helldust Gloves, for additional necrotic damage. So there's plenty of ways to get extra necrotic damage. You just really want to lean into the necrotic thing. But like I said, very in game, the best in slot for monks is going to be the Gloves of Soul Catching, and then the Boots of Uninhibited Kushigo. You do get these at the very end of Act 2 / beginning of Act 3, but the wearer deals additional damage equal to their Wisdom modifier on unarmed strikes. So just for every single attack, you're getting an extra +2 to your damage. Not bad. There are again plenty of other options. So you can go with the Disintegrating Nightwalkers to get Misty Step. You can go with the Evasive Shoes in Act 2 to get even more armor class. Probably gonna be what you mainly use, but again, there are plenty of good options for your boots. As for your jewelry, I have the Amulet of the Undevout on. You have high spellcasting, you get a +2 bonus to spell save DC, and you get an additional use of your Channel Divinity once it's used upon is restored upon taking a long rest. So you're probably not going to use this all day, but getting an extra use of your Touch of Death so you can get that extra pop of necrotic damage is probably pretty nice. You can get that twice a day with this, because without it you only get, you know, 1 use of your Channel Divinity. So having that could be nice. And then once you use it for the day, you can go back to the Sentient Amulet, which you can get in the Underdark in Act 1, which gives you Shatter and Key Restoration, so you can just get some extra key points. Probably going to be your best slot item for most of the game. But if you get, again, to the very end game, same place you get these gauntlets, you can get the Amulets of Greater Health to get a little bit of extra Constitution, get more health. Never a bad idea. As for your rings, Ring of Protection, +1 to AC, +1 to saving throw. Put whatever you want here. Again, I just went with the extra armor class because it's never a bad thing to have. And then the Ring of Free Action is also quite nice. You ignore difficult terrain, cannot be paralyzed or restrained. One thing that really shuts this character down is not being able to move. So if you're, have essentially, not literally freedom of movement, but essentially freedom of movement, could be a nice way to avoid one of the few drawbacks of this character. Crusher's Ring is good early. The Ring of Mental Inhibition is nice. When a foe fails a saving throw against one of your spells or action, they gain mental fatigue for 2 turns, and you're going to be inflicting a ton of saving throws with your abilities. They have a -1 penalty to Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma saving throws for every turn remaining. When it fails a Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma saving throw, while having 5 or more turns of this condition remaining, the entity takes 1 to 4 psychic damage. I believe you get this ring pretty early on. I think it's in the Kresh, so could be a nice item for that. And I also have quite a few options for those of you who like to use staves. But before we do that, let's quickly talk about the bows. The bow of awareness you get very early on from Royal Moonglow in the Goblin Camp, gives you a +1 to initiative. And then in Act 3, you can get the Hellrider Longbow, which gives you a +3 to initiative and advantage on perception checks. So quite nice. And then you also potentially hit people with Fairy Fire. You're mostly just using it for the boost to initiative, but it's just nonetheless nice to have. I wouldn't really recommend using staffs with this build because your unarmed attacks do so much more damage. So go ahead and down one of these. So your unarmed attacks are doing 6 to 30 damage, 16 to 30 damage. It's pretty good. And then with a staff, they're doing, you know, significantly less, 11 to 21. So you're doing more damage by punching. But if you just like the idea of using a staff on your monks because, you know, monks use staffs, that's totally viable. They're pretty good options. You get Carlon's Grace from Auntie Ethel very early on in Act 1. You get a +1 bonus to your unarmed attack rolls and damage. And while the wielder is not wearing armor, they receive a +2 bonus to saving throws. Pretty damn good. So obviously, you know, not quite as much as damage as you would be doing with your just unarmed attacks, but you're still doing flurry of blows regardless as a bonus action. So you can hit something with your staff and then just still do, you know, astronomical damage with your flurry of blows, which is where, like I said, a majority of your damage comes from. So if you just want to carry a staff, you can. You get some nice passive benefits from them. Gold Wormling Staff does a little bit of fire damage. You get that pretty early on. Cacophony is pretty cool. Does thunder damage, so you can do reverberation shenanigans if you want to, you know, rock that set of gear. Harper's Sacred Checker gives you another cast of Spiritual Weapon. Could be nice. And then the armor of the staff is pretty cool. I don't really see this item talked about too often, but it's pretty fun. Once per turn, the blow possibly knocks a foe back 7 feet and stuns them. Could be good. So yeah, just an extra way to potentially stun characters. Overall, what you're getting out of this build is just a lot of raw damage, a really fun theme, a ton of necrotic damage, and yeah, I think it's quite awesome. Let me know what you think. Let me know what sort of character you want to see me build next. I have a couple of these lined up, but I'm very open to taking suggestions. If you have themes you want to see or specific sort of builds you want to see me work on, just go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. That being said, I very much appreciate you guys checking out this first of what is hopefully mini build videos, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.